Hello students, today we will be discussing the topic voting behavior of rural and urban India. The basic objective behind today's discussion is to understand the key determinants of voting behavior of rural people, to understand the voting pattern of urban voters, and to understand the reasons behind the high voting percentage of rural voters as compared to urban voters. Now, to understand how rural and urban India vote, it is also imperative to understand the importance of voting in a representative democracy. Elections are considered to be the cornerstone of representative democracy. It is through elections that government is voted in or voted out. Voting is a means of expressing the approval or disapproval of the voters about the policies and programs of the various political parties and the qualities of the candidates. The study of voting behavior constitutes an important aspect of contemporary political research on democracies. Voting behavior is not confined to the examination of statistics, records and computation of electoral shifts and swings. It also involves an analysis of the individual's psychological processes, perceptions, emotions, motivation and their relation to political action, as well as institutional patterns such as the communication process and their impact on elections. Man, though a rational creature, sometimes behaves irrationally and in an emotional manner when it comes to expressing their voting behavior, and as such, voting behavior is shaped by multiple factors such as age, class, caste, religion, personality, charisma, cult, which influences the minds of voters. There are three schools of thought that dominate analysis of voting behavior: the sociological school, the psychosocial school, and the rational choice model. The sociological model of voting behavior focuses on the influence of social factors, while the psychosocial school studies the behavior of voters based on their party affiliations. The rational choice model utilizes variables affecting choice of voters such as rationality, information and uncertainty. Several social factors may be involved in India that influences voting behavior of Indian voters. This can include factors such as community, caste, religion, money, language, ideology, which are utilized by political parties and influence election results. Among these social factors which dominate and influence the psychology of voters, it is important to understand that voting is sometimes a rational choice, sometimes an habitual choice, and sometimes an emotional matter. A habitual choice could be a rational choice that is predetermined by a previous rational choice. Let us try to go a little deeper as to how rural and urban voters are influenced by a variety of factors. The first social factor influencing Indian voting mindset is charisma, which denotes an exceptional quality of a factor influencing voting patterns that can override interfering factors through its force of attraction. Charisma may involve attractive leaders revered by voters who can turn the tide in an election. Many of the Indian voters worship their party leaders as heroes. This hero worshipping plays an important role in turning electoral results and turnouts. Caste is another very important factor which is deep rooted in Indian society as an and is an important determinant of social relations, especially in rural areas from where the majority of the votes are derived. The third important factor is religion, which being among the most pervasive factors in Indian society, frequently figuring in electoral politics as vote bank politics. Though there are certain legal restrictions which has been imposed against invoking religion, however, religion continues to influence the mind of voters and political parties. The fourth important social factor is language, which becomes very important because of the linguistic ordering of Indian states. Even within states, numerous languages can exist which can act as important points in elections. Subnationalism is another important factor where numerous regional identities become an important factor in shaping electoral behavior, and that is precisely the reason why we have an upsurge of regional political parties trying to lure and tempt regional voters on the basis of identity considerations. The next important factor is the performance of the incumbent government. The performance of the incumbent party in power is a very, very important determinant of voting behavior, and often anti-incumbency votes happen that can remove the party in power. The next important factor, which is a major hindrance to rational choice among voters, is literacy or the lack of it, which can affect the rational choice among voters, such that people may be disposed to vote in terms of social factors other than a studied analysis of who one should vote for. The next important factor, which is very important in India, is factionalism in politics, where mainstream political parties can disenchant voters towards local organizations. The last factor is the status of the candidate, which influences voting behavior to a great extent. In fact, the character, personality of the candidate provides a rational choice for voters' engagement. The candidate's record of success also offers an emotional appeal to the voters. These are the various factors which influence voters, their attitude towards political parties and candidates. Let us come to our main point of discussion, students. How do rural and urban voters vote in India? Geography and location constitute an important determinant of voting behavior. Voters residing in cities, towns and villages elect their representatives based on certain criteria. It is presumed that urban voters are more educated, politically more conscious to take correct decisions. There is a general perception that rural voters vote more for candidates than urban voters, and rural voters are a choice for major political parties. However, over the years, there has been a change in the way spatial factors have impacted voting behavior and electoral statistics. Now, how do urban voters vote? Before that, we need to identify what is an urban constituency. Urban constituencies or urban areas can be defined as places with a municipality, corporation, cantonment or a notified town area. Besides, there are certain other criteria for identifying an urban area. For example, a minimum population of 5,000, at least 75% of the male working population are engaged in non-agricultural activities, and a density of population of at least 400 per square kilometer, that is 1000 per square mile. Areas not fitting in the above definition can be considered to be rural areas. It should be noted that the occupational engagement of the population living under a municipality are the main factors separating rural from urban people. As per the 2011 census, for the first time in independent India, urban population increased more in absolute numbers. The reasons behind the increase in urban population is migration of people to cities and towns for better life and employment opportunities. it is imperative to understand how have urban and rural issues reflected in party manifestos and have they influenced voting behavior? According to the 2011 census, there are 377 million people, roughly one-third of the population residing in cities and towns. Out of the 543 Lok Sabha seats, only 18% of the electorate and around 100 constituencies are urban constituencies. The urban voters and how have they voted? In the 2014 Lok Sabha elections, the campaign centered around the urban voters. The main prime ministerial candidate of the BJP, Narendra Modi, addressed the urban voters extensively, playing up his investment-friendly, growth-oriented personality as the chief minister of the prosperous Gujarat state. Prime Minister Narendra Modi knew that urban voter was important and started his tenure with an urban political lingo. Usage of catchwords like Digital India, Startup India, 100 smart cities, Make in India, bullet train found extensive mention in his speeches and electoral campaigns. The 2019 Lok Sabha elections witnessed political parties emphasizing on urban issues. The BJP has been focusing on urban governance since the 2014 electoral polls. In 2014, emphasis was on Smart Cities Mission, and it came out with a plan to set up 5 regional centers of excellence on urban governance issues. These institutions intended to help state and local bodies of urban areas to enhance their capacities and effectiveness. The BJP's manifesto, 2014 manifesto, also proposed on the launching of an urban mobility mission that would promote technology-based mobility solutions and facilitate single mobility cards to be used across multiple transportation modes. So, one smart card across all modes of transportation. That was the key agenda to lure urban voters. Significantly, the party also promised to make public transportation and public spaces safe for women, children and other vulnerable population. If the BJP focused on urban issues, the INC was also not left behind. The INC also included innovative schemes for the urban electorate. It offered to take up the implementation of the 74th Constitution Amendment Act effectively with emphasis on empowering the mayor's office with more powers to improve the lives of urban citizens. Further, the Congress party also promised in its manifesto to take up issues affecting the urban poor, such as zero eviction policy, anchoring a comprehensive slum upgradation policy to cover basic public services such as electricity, water, sanitation, amongst others, to all residents in urban areas. Emphasis was also on night shelters for the homeless in cities and implementation of the right to housing for the urban poor. Another issue which was taken up by most political parties was the issue of pollution plaguing urban areas. The BJP offered a series of measures, including the proposal to upgrade the existing National Clean Air Program into a mission with focus on 102 most polluted cities. Calling air pollution a national public health emergency, the Congress has proposed to overhaul the existing Clean Air Program and proposed the establishment of a new body called Environment Protection Authority or EPA to ensure strict implementation of environmental norms and standards. The Aam Aadmi Party, which is considered to be an urban-centric party, also focused on a series of measures, particularly promoting cleaner public transportation, including electric buses, vacuum cleaning of roads and pavements, massive plantation of trees, among others, to fight air pollution. Claiming to have introduced green budget, the AAP's manifesto promises to usher in a green economy that would tackle pollution from all fronts. The case of the Aam Aadmi Party is quite interesting because Aam Aadmi Party is considered to be a metro phenomena, and it has consistently emphasized on urban issues. The AAP also has a city-centric appeal. As a result, Aam Aadmi Party's performance in rural areas has been very, very distressing. Thus, we can see that the major political parties emphasized on key urban issues to lure the urban voters. Thus, the 2019 elections as well as the 2014 Lok Sabha elections emphasized on key pressing urban problems like urban mobility, multiple modes of transportation, housing for all, slum-free India, and strengthening the urban governance system and the financing mechanism of the urban bodies. Now, based on the urban issues reflected in the party manifestos, it is interesting to note how people voted and responded to these electoral gimmicks. Now, out of the 100 urban seats, let us see how the BJP, Congress and other political parties got seats. Of the 100 urban seats, 50% or more urban population in 2009 voted for BJP. In other words, the BJP received 23 seats in 2009 and the number of seats increased in 2014 to 47. This is a remarkable performance for the BJP in the urban areas. The Congress, which won 41 seats in 2009, managed to secure just 10 seats in 2014, while other parties won 36 and 43 seats respectively in 2009 and 2014 elections. In the traditional stronghold of urban areas, the BJP and its allies have done exceedingly well. In the 2019 elections, in Delhi, the BJP won all the 7 seats and swept through the 6 parliamentary constituencies of Mumbai. In other 2 metros, Kolkata and Chennai, where the party had a negligible presence, the BJP won 1 seat, while it drew a blank in Tamil Nadu. In other cities too, the BJP fared well by winning 1 of the 4 seats on offer in Hyderabad, both the seats in Ahmedabad and 1 each in Pune, Chandigarh and Lucknow. This seems to be an impressive performance for the BJP in the metropolitan cities. Now, the BJP has been known to be urban-centric party and therefore very close to the urban voters. But is the BJP and other national parties equally close to the rural voters? Let us understand the dynamics of rural voters towards the national parties. Historically, rural voters have voted for the Congress or other regional parties, while the BJP's vote base, as I just said, has been urban-centric among the rich, better educated, upper caste groups. However, in the 2019 elections, there has been a role reversal. The rural voter for the BJP was the greatest source of worry, and therefore the BJP manifesto worked towards coming close to the rural voters. The closely contested Gujarat elections in 2018 had shown a clear rural-urban divide, with the Congress a better performer in the rural areas of Gujarat and BJP a better performer in the urban areas. Madhya Pradesh, Rajasthan, Chhattisgarh. These states also indicated that the rural voters were not in favor of BJP given the agrarian distress over the farm laws. History corroborates that in 2004, Atal Bihari Vajpayee government lost the Lok Sabha polls after their glamorous India Shining program, which failed to cut ice with the rural voters. Therefore, the factors that determine voting behavior among rural areas is an important indicator of how rural voters vote. For an average rural voter, existential necessities play a very important role, and therefore they would vote for political parties which would cater to their existential needs like water, electricity, housing, sanitation, roads, connectivity, jobs. For a rural voter, things like toilets, gas connections and houses are of utmost importance. The BJP, through schemes like Swachh Bharat, different home yojanas, Ujjwala scheme, have actually tried to garner support among the rural voters. And as such, the BJP, through a successive launching of several famous and popular rural schemes, have tried to come closer to the rural population of India. Since 2014, BJP has been focusing on many of the welfare schemes to target the rural voters. For instance, the Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana is very popular among the rural voters. Now, another important scheme was building Pakka houses for them, for the 10 million rural residents. The government also expanded the existing sanitation programs with the introduction of the Swachh Bharat mission on 2nd October 2014. Official data shows that the government made a significant effort to increase toilet construction. To date, 96 million household toilets have been built under the mission, which is considered to be life-changing, especially for women. Quite importantly, the BJP had also launched a number of women-centric schemes for the rural voters. The Pradhan Mantri Ujjwala Yojana, providing for free LPG to poor rural households. Another important area of focus for the BJP was financial inclusion of rural voters, and that was done through the Pradhan Mantri Jan Dhan Yojana, which was a reformed version of the UPA's financial inclusion program. Are rural voters important vote banks for political parties? Let us try to address this question. While the different schemes introduced by the BJP and the Congress from time to time have not been flawless, new hurdles have been created for the welfare program beneficiaries, yet as a result of integration of the various schemes, it has been found that the rural voters have benefited definitely from the series of measures implemented in the last 10 years. Among the private goods provided to the poor, which is very popular among the poor, is the Ayushman Bharat program, which was also launched as Modi Care. Public goods provision are also equally attractive to the rural voters. However, almost all major political parties have converged on two major rural problems: roads and electrification. In both the cases, national parties have tried to tempt the voters on the issue of greater financial resources to be provided for rural electrification and construction of Pakka roads. Welfare scheme students cannot be expected to shift voting intentions on their own, but they do contribute to build an image of the governance capabilities of the incumbent government. So, welfare schemes cannot by themselves be vote banks, but definitely a pro-poor image, pro-rural image building is facilitated through these welfare schemes. Let us look into the voting pattern. With the 2019 general election, the BJP has managed to shed its tag of being an urban political party by winning 123 rural seats, which is better than what it won in 2014. It won 115 seats in 2014. BJP has also done exceptionally well in the semi-rural belt and has enhanced its tally from 127 in 2014 to 141 in 2019. In its traditional stronghold of urban seats, the BJP has slipped marginally to 39 from 40 in 2014. Analysts say that the BJP moved into rural territories due to their welfare schemes. Given the fact that the rural voters and the urban voters have different sets of issues to be solved by the parties and the government in power. However, in conclusion, it can be stated that multiple factors play a role in influencing voting behavior in urban and rural areas. But one thing is common: social media has definitely played a very, very prominent role in determining the voting behavior of people in India in 2019 elections. However, two things stand out by way of conclusion. One, better tackling of governance issues, better fulfillment of promises have swayed the urban voters, while fulfillment of welfare measures and schemes have helped the rural voters to vote positively for the government in power. Thank you.